Okay, welcome to the March 24th, 2021 regular meeting of the Governing Board of the Chandler Unified School District. Mrs. Nye, could you please do our roll call?
Barb Moston.
Here.
Jason Olive.
Here.
Laura Bruner.
Here.
Lindsay Buck.
Here.
Joel Work.
Here.
Thank you, Mrs. Nye. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, and please remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. We're going to start this evening with a little bit of routine business. First, we need to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 regular board meeting. I have not gotten any indication that there need to be any additions or corrections to those minutes, so could I please have a motion for approval?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 regular board meeting as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes of the March 10th, 2021 board meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we need to approve and ratify our payroll and our accounts payable vouchers. Could I please get a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve and ratify payroll and accounts payable vouchers.
Second.
All those in favor of approving and ratifying payroll and accounts payable vouchers, please say aye.
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 The motion carries. Dr. Castile, do we have any correspondence?
None this evening, Madam President.
Thank you. This evening, Terry Locke, Director of Community Relations, is going to recognize Alberto Esparza, founder of Si Se Puede, for a lifetime of contributions to students and staff of CUSD. Mr. Locke.
Well, thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Castile and guests. A very exciting night as we honor the recognizing Alberto Esparza, the President and CEO of Si Se Puede Foundation, for his lifetime contributions to the students and staff of Chandler Unified School District. A little bit of background. In 1993, Alberto founded the Si Se Puede Foundation, a nonprofit organization that provides programs to improve the quality of life for children and families and strengthen communities. Si Se Puede Foundation focuses on school and risk factors that are barriers to educational achievement and primarily serves lower income, predominantly minority communities in Chandler and Phoenix. He has successfully inspired others by planting seeds of purpose and ambition in young minds to build bridges and tear down walls that can divide communities. Si Se Puede initially started in Mesa, but very quickly moved to Chandler, where Alberto began building relationships and offering programs to at-risk and underrepresented youth. He kind of made Foley Park his home and meeting place back in the day. In 1998, Alberto became interested in science, technology, engineering, mathematics, or STEM as we now know it, and spent 2 years developing a curriculum long before STEM became a household word. His efforts led to the City of Chandler awarding the foundation a grant to establish a STEM program in Chandler Unified School District. The program now serves approximately 350 students from Chandler, Phoenix, and Tempe between the ages of 8 and 22. The program includes land, air, and sea robots, as well as a university underwater program that's received national and worldwide attention. Alberto has created the She, not Si, but She Se Puede as a way to involve more girls in STEM. In this process, he created an Arduino program with Phoenix College and expanding to Chandler this spring. The Arduino program focuses on engaging 7th and 8th grade girls in STEM, trademarked She Se Puede, and gives royalties back to the foundation. Other programs under his leadership include Scholars Program, which prepares high school students for college and teaching them about success in college and preparedness, the She Se Puede Robotics, Underwater Robotics, Youth Soccer, Ballet Folklorico, Annual STEM Conference with students and guest speakers, Annual Educator of the Year recognition, teacher workshops to train the trainer for staff working with English language learner STEM classes, and many, many more. So tonight, we're so excited and overdue to recognize Mr. Alberto Esparza for his lifetime contributions to Chandler Unified School District.
Barbara's going somewhere. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate all that you have done. Thank you so much. Our next section is our student body president comments. And this evening, we have two students, one from Castile and one from Chandler High. From Castile, Ellie McClure. Could you please go to the podium and tell us what's going on at Castile?
Thank you to the governing board and Dr. Castile for having me here tonight. My name is Ellie McClure, Camille Castile High School's student body president. It has been just over a month since I last presented to you, but I'm eager to tell you all the amazing things that have been happening at Castile. As I mentioned last time, as a student government, we decided this year's motto would be, all in this together. Focusing on this motto, we strive to create an environment where we can rely on each other and work together. We have started to reach our goals of having a positive mindset and continually looking for ways to better serve our student body. Something that has profoundly affected Castile's student body is the passing of a fellow Colt. Last month, she was in a tragic car accident that took her life. This devastated our Castile family and our community. We showed support to her family and friends by tying pink bows around the campus. Our sports team wore pink ribbons in their hair to honor her. And as a community, we helped raise just under $25,000 to help her family with medical bills. We continue to give our love and support to her family. On a happier note, I want to recognize Mr. Lamond and our digital media class who helped promote Black History Month in February. They made videos of students speaking about influential African Americans. The videos were played during our advisory periods. Their hard work and talents did not go unnoticed on campus and helped unify our student body and honor those who have made a difference. The athletes and coaches at Castile are very grateful to be playing and have a season. Our student government continues our tradition of our sports goodie bags for each player before a big game. It is a simple yet fun way to encourage our athletes and support them on campus. I would like to present to you some of Castile winter sports highlights. First, our men's soccer team. They just won 5A state championship in a crushing game of 8-2 against Ironwood High School. They are currently ranked 23rd in the nation, and we recognize them for their hard work. Our women's soccer team just placed second in state and barely lost a nail-biting game of a score to 1-2. With that game being their only loss in their season, we congratulate them. They really showed what being Colt strong looks like. Castile's women's basketball season just got cut short, but their resilience and competitiveness will not go unnoticed. Their undefeated team will go out with the best record in our school's history, reaching #1 in the PowerPoints and AZ Central's rankings. Another Castile team that deserves to be highlighted is the women's wrestling team. They finished 4th out of 83 teams in the state, and 2 Lady Colts took home individual state championships. Isabella Munzo entered the tournament as an underdog to the 2-time defending state champion who was 71-0 in her career. In a tight 4-3 decision, our Colt came out victorious, becoming Castile's first ever state champion in women's wrestling. Shortly after, Cammie Carter brought in the girls' second state championship of the night. Castile's men's wrestling won the state championship. Our wrestling team presented the trophy to Rosa from our custodial staff. They did this to honor her role of cleaning the wrestling mats and providing them with a space to practice and achieve great things. The award-winning Castile Fine Arts Department has found innovative ways to show their talents. Here are some of the highlights of their program. 3 of our choirs performed in March. They submitted recordings of that concert to a virtual choir competition. Later this month, they will be working virtually with renowned choir directors to improve their program and choral talents. They hope to win the Outstanding Choral Program Award. Castile's Jazz Choir just performed at the Chandler District Choir Exchange, allowing a COVID-safe way for Chandler choirs to meet, perform, and support one another. Regional Choir is an audition-only choir made up of 100 students from the Phoenix area. This year it was held virtually, and 22 of the members were Castile students. We also had 8 Colts make the all-region band and orchestra. Our Castile students performed well and enjoyed participating while still following CDC regulations. Obviously, this year has had unique challenges for everyone, but our band program has been put to the test. With their 3rd new director in 3 years, a lot of adjustments have been made. We are proud to say that they were able to perform an amazing concert this past month at our Joel Worth Stadium. While complying with the CDC mask guidelines, Castile's theater program held auditions and continued to hold rehearsals to prepare for the upcoming performance of The Drowsy Chaperone in April. They hope to have an improv troupe performance later this quarter. Let me know if you would like tickets and we can get you some. Our student government had a Random Acts of Kindness Week, known as RAC Week, which features every student's name written on a paper heart displayed in the hallway. The picture you see is how it turned out. As part of our RAC Week, we paired with our World Language Department and collected supplies for our annual Raylan Drive. We collected enough supplies to provide tissues and hand sanitizer to every classroom in the school. Last time we presented the board, we were eagerly preparing for our homecoming. We had a fun-filled Pixar-themed week with spirit days, hallway decorations, and lunchtime activities. We kept up the tradition of having Dr. Castile crown the royalty, and this year we had the court presented and crowned at one of our home basketball games. Brock Dew was our homecoming king, and Chloe Moody was our homecoming queen. Here is a video of what our week looked like. It really has made all the difference to be back in school with our peers. As a student government, we are grateful for the opportunity to interact with the students. Something fun that I was able to do during homecoming week was interview the students and faculty around the campus, asking questions that went along with the theme of the week. Here is another video for some of their responses. Pixar character, what would you be?
Lightning McQueen.
Yes, why?
Because he's super fast.
Hello, what's your name?
Kelly.
Kelly, what's your favorite Pixar movie?
I'd have to say Up.
Up, that's a good one. Why?
I think it's really sweet.
It is. It made me cry in the first 5 minutes for sure. For sure. What's your day are you most excited for this week?
I think I'm really excited for Cowboys and Aliens.
Yes, why?
I just love, being an alien. We did it last year and I just So you're choosing Alien?
Heck yeah. What Pixar character represents you the most?
I think Dory because I forget stuff a lot.
That's good. Okay, cool. Nice to meet you. What's your guys' favorite Pixar movie?
Oh, that's a tough. I'd have to say Toy Story.
Toy Story? Oh. So, if you had, what Pixar character would represent you the most?
Oh, that's hard. I feel like Lightning McQueen.
Why?
He's just like, he's really cool.
Yeah, you're really cool. So.
And he's like fast.
Yeah, just like you.
Just like me.
Yeah.
Go run!
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you?
Good. If you could describe me in one Pixar character, what would you choose?
What's her name? What's Woody's girlfriend's name?
Bo Peep.
No, not Woody's. Jessie.
Jessie? Okay, thanks. What character from Pixar describes you the most?
I'd say Tomato, so I'm a little slow.
Oh, yeah. I like it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What's your favorite Pixar movie?
I think Up.
Up? Why?
Because it's cute.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well. Okay, what Pixar character best represents you and why?
I'm gonna go with the little light that jumps up and down on the ball all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Always finds joy in what he does, so I hope that's kind of how I am. But
Hello, what's your favorite Pixar movie?
Mine would be Monsters, Inc. I like
Good choice. As we're beginning the fourth quarter of the school year, here are a couple things we're looking forward to. We first look forward to our senior shirts. We have seniors submit creative designs that we put on shirts for the class of 2021 that they can purchase. We're also looking forward to a senior barbecue, where seniors grab a faculty-cooked lunch provided by the student government. We plan to design matching masks that seniors can purchase and wear at graduation. We're hoping to approve senior sunset and trace your space activities, where seniors can draw with chalk in their parking spot to commemorate their time at Castile. We look forward to a fun-filled fourth quarter. Thank you for allowing us to meet in person to create these memories. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you the highlights at Castile. I brought Castile face masks for Dr. Castile, Dr. Gilbert, and the governing board to thank you for your time, your hard work, and your dedication.
Thank you so much, Ellie. We really appreciate you telling us all the great things that have been going on at Castile High. And thank you for the gifts.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to hear from Sienna Ibarra from Chandler High School. Sienna?
Hello, my name is Siani Ibarra, and I'm the Chandler High Student Body President. I just want to say thank you for having me here to start off. Starting off, I would just like to start off with what Student Council has been up to for the past about month since we last saw you guys. So, right before we left for break, we had started off with our student body and our class elections, and we are really excited to get those done with before our fourth quarter. It's been a really seemingly smooth process, and I'm happy to invite the next year's council into Chandler High. We also had a live streamed unity assembly. We were so happy to have, we had about 6 or 7 acts, as well as a theater performance and a little show from our daycare, which was the cutest. I was really proud of what we had put together and how it had come so smoothly on our live stream, or we didn't live stream it, it was pre-recorded. But we had brought those out to our first hours to present to their class. With our last meeting, we were mid-Spirit Week for our Valentine's Day, And I was so excited to have, my council was very excited to see everybody dressed and spirited. We had such a good turnout. I was really excited to see everybody in their dress wear and their pink and red. We also had flower cells. We had some every lunch that was pre-put out, and we had sold out and made over $100 in profit. We also have a walk that with the Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation that two of our council members are a part of, and one of our council members also have a team that we will sign up and walk, have our own little walk, either around the school or Arizona Ave, however we plan it out, but we'll have a walk to raise donations and walk with our team. For next year, we've already started coming up with brainstorms as we come into our first class of the quarter. We have things like game day shirts, what it'll be like when we come back for schedules, things like that to think about and have our new council incorporated. We also have different senior events we've been thinking about. We had just started a brainstorm, things like, well, they're just ideas, but maybe like a senior type of parade, and planning out and finding ways to celebrate our seniors before we close out the year. So starting off with sports, it's been a very busy about 6 weeks since I last saw you guys. Okay, so we did conclude our soccer and boys basketball teams. They had qualified both for the playoffs. Our boys went 8-2-1 and ranked 5th in their rank. We also had some very big wins for our wrestling team in the last 2 weekends. Zach Espalin placed first in his weight class for his 4th straight year and will be going on to do wrestling in the Navy. Nathaniel Diacey placed second in his weight class as well as Riley Dye placed second in her weight class during the Girls State Championship. So we did start our spring sports along with all of the other teams. And at our latest track meet at the South Mountain Classic, our women's team placed first and our men's team placed 5th. Overall, Chandler athletes placed 36 times in the top 10 of their events. Recently, baseball defeated Desert Vista to 7-4. Beach volleyball defeated Marana 3-2, and our boys volleyball defeated Mesa and Mountain Point. Just some pictures of our winners and some of the recent sports. So during our last quarter, we had an outside band concert, which was hosted outside for our parents and just some friends of the community to have in our very own courtyard. We also had our NHS invitations for next year, and in about 2 weeks, we will have the induction ceremony for our NHS members. And then we will also have our very own theater department will be putting on a live stream of Under the Sea, which will be a live action of The Little Mermaid. It'll be on the April 15th and through the 17th, and it will also be live streamed. Recently, as Ellie had said, we had a choir exchange hosted at the CHS, the CCA, where our Chandler choir invited Castile and Perry choirs to our school to help give our students a feel of performing before their coming up virtual festival that NAU is hosting. So we have a Yes Women Can Club, and recently they had over 20 donations over 20 full trash bags of donations to the Arizona Women's Recovery Center. We also have our Science Olympiad team, who we would also like to say good luck to in state, which they will have on March 27th. And then we also have our very own Dell Scholar. Her name is Gladys Garcia Orozco, and was named a Dell Scholar, which is a prestigious program which helps students achieve their academic dreams. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sienna, for coming this evening and sharing everything that's going on at Chandler High School. It looks like you guys have had a very busy year so far. So thank you so much. Our next section is our citizen comments, and Mr. Locke is going to provide the public comments that were submitted online. Mr. Locke?
Yes, thank you again, Madam President, members of the board, and Dr. Castile. Since our last board meeting on February 10th, we heard from 50 people who took advantage of our electronic method to provide citizen comments. The opportunity is promoted on our governing board page, allowing for the convenience of providing feedback remotely. With our current format, we're able to provide board members feedback in advance to give them time to process the information and ask questions of the district administration. We categorize the feedback by topic. This week's emails fall into 3 categories. 1 is health, safety, masks, and metrics. 2 is curriculum, and number 3 is extracurricular activities. You have the submissions verbatim for your consideration. They're also available on the website for public review.
Thank you, Mr. Locke. I hope all of our board members have had a chance or an opportunity to look through all the comments. We have 5 citizens who'd like to speak this evening. Dr. Nance, is the timer working? Because I know we've had some upgrades in the system, and I just wanted to make sure it'll be, okay, great, thank you. So our first speaker this evening is Heather Tawney.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. We wanted to let you know we appreciate so much time that you spent in Super Q allowing us to share our stories on behalf of the CUSD employees. And we wanted to specifically highlight just a few that illustrate the need and importance of the $400 wellness incentive and what it means to staff members having lost that financial support this school year. In listening to teachers, one teacher wrote to us, the $400 wellness incentive is much appreciated and it makes a lot of sense. It encouraged me to be more proactive about my health, which will hopefully prevent bigger issues down the road. I didn't like seeing it taken away and hope that you will reinstate this incentive as soon as possible. My dental and vision coverage is very costly, so any little bit helps. Another one shared that she's used her $400 towards dental procedures not covered by her insurance. It also helped with her yearly expenditures for her thyroid medication and offsets the cost for her annual ultrasound and MRI. Additionally, when one of our teachers was a single mom, the health insurance was a huge expense for her young family. She used every penny of her HSA money for co-pays and braces for each of her children. The HSA money allowed her to stretch her budget and helped her provide necessary medical care for her children. To this day, the wellness incentive allows her to buy glasses and contact lenses for her kids, and it's been an invaluable help as she counts on it every year. Lastly, one teacher mentioned that she spends $921.36 a month to insure her family in dental, vision, and health care, and the $400 helps to offset some of those co-pays. We thank you very much for considering each of these stories as we navigate through this economic and health challenge, and we trust that you will ensure that employees and their families' health will continue to be a top priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Liz Harris.
Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak. Hello, my name is Liz Harris, and I've been a parent of CUSD students since 2002, with 1 graduated student and 2 still currently enrolled. In late 2019, my daughter spoke to a school administrator about setting up a chapter of Turning Point USA at a certain CUSD high school. Turning Point USA is a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to identify, educate, train, and organize students to promote freedom. And I repeat that, to promote freedom. There was no indication by administration that there would be any issues whatsoever. My daughter continued to the next step and selected a teacher sponsor for the club. My daughter and like-minded students set up the governance of the club, president, VP, secretary, and treasurer, and conducted a few introductory meetings. In early 2020, my daughter and I discussed ways in which to promote the club. She decided to do a donut incentivized meeting to encourage students to come and learn more about Turning Point USA. On a Friday, she hung flyers around the school in all the appropriate designated locations to promote club meetings. After school, she received a message from school administration that all advertising of the club and the upcoming Tuesday meeting was to cease immediately. She responded by asking if there was something she should know about, and the reply she got was not to worry and she was not in trouble, but to report to school administration upon the weekend's conclusion. Upon arrival back to school, my daughter called me to inform me that all her club posters were removed from where she had hung them, so there were no ads informing students of the meeting, and now the meeting would need to be canceled. She told me that she was headed to administration. For the first time in my life, I instinctively asked my child, "Do you have a recording device on your phone?" She stated yes. I asked her to start recording immediately. She went to administration to ask what was happening, and I will paraphrase some of the key highlights. It was accused that the club she wanted to promote was anti-Semitic and a hate group. Obviously, this was the furthest thing from the truth, as Turning Point USA's largest donors happened to be Jewish. She did remind the administrators that she had permission, was trying to understand where this was coming from, and essentially it was
30 seconds.
It was coming from a teacher and a parent. Long story short, my daughter, I have more to say, my daughter has given up. And I want to thank CUSD for this happening.
Thank you. Our next individual is Erica Marsh.
Good evening, board and administration. My name is Erica Marsh, and I am a CUSD teacher of 13 years, as well as a CUSD parent of 3 children, ages 4, 6, and 8. And today, or this evening, my comments are also regarding the $400 wellness incentive. I know not all employees depend on this incentive, but for those of us that do, we are willing to work to receive it. For my family, $400 means not having to decide between postponing my dental procedure another year or taking my kids to the dentist for their x-rays and cleanings. For my family, $400 means not having to set up a payment plan to pay for my 8-year-old's echocardiogram, which is a routine follow-up for the open heart surgery she had as an infant. And for my family, $400 means that we can buy vitamins and supplements so that we can avoid urgent care visits, because those are simply unaffordable for us. There are many scenarios, each unique to each different family. Please consider the impact that discontinuing the wellness incentive will have on CUSD employees and their families. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kurt Roars.
Madam President, Madam Superintendent, staff, and board members. My name is Kurt Roars. I'm a parent in this district. Come here this evening to address the board and staff members on self-determination. Marxist theory, from which critical race theory is ultimately derived, is based on the assumption that society can be separated into distinct homogeneous classes, now referred to as identity groups, that these classes be further divided into oppressors and the oppressed, but then set against each other in a social conflict only firm intervention of an authoritarian state can resolve. Critical race theory can then be reduced to a segregationist model based on racial, gender, sexual orientation stereotypes. We're now seeing a resurgence of separate but equal schemes based on these stereotypes. This is clearly discrimination. The prejudicial treatment of different categories of people on the grounds of race in all its ignominious display, it's a new type of apartheid. This is doctrine that was rejected in this country long ago. The fragility of critical race theory can be seen in the vehement denunciation of any criticism of its principles, particularly in the form of a new cancel culture which seeks to censor and suppress any opposition. This dogma needs to be resoundingly rejected by the district. Each student should be treated as a unique individual instead of being considered as a soulless member of a predetermined class. Social policy must be centered on the mutual respect of individuals for each other, regardless of their background, ethnicity, or social identity. The district used to have an initiative called Character Counts. It was a one-time post on the wall behind where the board members now sit. This program is based primarily on 6 individual behaviors: trustworthiness, respect, responsibility and fairness, caring, and citizenship. It had nothing to do with prejudicial assumptions based on how a person looked or what identity group they subscribed to. It was based on how a person behaved. It was based on developing good personal character of individual students. The policy of this district must return to a focus on developing students as individuals, according to the principles of self-responsibility, self-reliance, and self-determination. These are the principles that made this country great and set apart and aside from others. This is where student self-esteem really comes from. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker, Katie Nash.
Good evening. I wanted to thank you all for the collegiality that we have in our Super Q process. I know we spend a lot of time crafting delicate survey questions, analyzing data, and assembling the story of our certified staff. This year, more than any other though, teachers mentioned words like exhaustion, mental health, fatigue, and so on. The previous speakers, Heather and Erica, highlighted concerns about the wellness incentive, but teachers are facing additional stressors as well. Today, a bill was heard and passed in committee in which the Attorney General could civilly sue a teacher who uses district resources for political purposes or to organize a job action. Chandler Education Association has had a strong relationship with the district and has worked together to improve the lives of staff and students. Bills like this undermine the public's view of teachers. With every bill that passes like this, teachers' stress levels go up and up. In a community like Chandler, we cannot legislation eat away at the strong foundation that Dr. Castile affectionately refers to as Arizona's best. In closing, our hope is that the district will continue to support its educators by upholding our values of excellence, collaboration, integrity, efficiency, and very most importantly, especially with some of the hate crimes that have been happening, equity. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. We appreciate everyone who came and spoke this evening. Just to remind everyone that the board members or members of the board may not discuss items that were not specifically identified on the agenda, so we typically cannot respond to any of the citizens' comments that were made this evening. We will now move on to our consent agenda. Dr. Castile.
Yes, Madam President, members of the board, we're requesting approval for monetary gifts generously donated to our schools in the amount of $12,135.31. Request approval of the items that were donated to some of our schools in the amount of $42,140.75. At our January 13th meeting, the governing board was informed that the last CUSD music curriculum adoption was in 2004. On October 27th, the curriculum department submitted an RFP for elementary K-6 general music. They have now identified Quaver music to present for use on our K-6 campuses beginning in the 2021-22 school year. This program develops online curriculum with the focus on general music education that combines engaging digital resources and ongoing professional development. The cost of the 5-year license is $2,760 $276,885, including tax and shipping. This will be funded through the district textbook budget in accordance with the revised statute ARS 15721. This curriculum was displayed at the IRC for 60-day public review. There were no public comments. The next item, we have a change order for our speech services. We previously had an amount of $1,200,000. Due to the lack of speech pathologist candidates, we have needed to contract services. We're requesting approval to change that contract speech services to add an additional $600,000, bringing the total expenditure for this school year to $1,800,000 to provide services to our students needing that support. You just had a lengthy, high-quality, outstanding study session on our assessment program, moving from ATI. At this time, we're requesting approval to secure K-6 student assessment and achievement information system through School City in the amount of $151,583.79. We are using a purchase agreement by way of Mesa Unified School District and the Guppies contract. I'm not going to go into all the details because I know you're probably well-versed on it. We are recommending approval of the transition to the School City program. And the Human Resources, Employment, Separation, and Compensation, we're recommending approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Castillo. Could I please get a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor of approving our consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Next, we will move on to our action items, and we have a couple of items on internet services. We'll start with the WAN Internet Services. Mr. Fletcher.
Madam President, members of the board, in order to receive E-rate monies, the district issued a request for qualification for E-rate eligible internet, excuse me, and wide area network of services. All vendors were required to be on an existing state master contract, approved purchasing cooperative contract, or compliant consortium in order to qualify. The district received 4 responses to the RFQ. The committee reviewed and scored each proposal. The committee recommends approval of Cox Communications to provide internet and WAN services to the district in the amount of $56,560 per year for internet services and $231,120 a year for wide area network services, plus a one-time non-recurring charge in the amount of, thank you, $2,092,510 for wide area network services. The contract will begin on July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, may be extended up to a maximum of 4 years, additional 1-year contracts. If mutually agreed by Cox and the district, we recommend approval of total expenditure of $2,380,190 for internet and wide area network services. Before the board acts, E-rate monies was a federal communications tax established by the Clinton Committee in the early 1990s. Its purpose was to provide internet services to schools and libraries across the nation. So that's the E-rate part of it, and it typically, at this point in time, is a 50-50 split between the district and what we receive from E-rate. We recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I get a motion on the table so that we can go ahead and start discussing this?
Sorry, so moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So, questions for Mr. Fletcher? Mr. Worth, do you have some questions?
I kind of requested this be put on the agenda, just the complexity and the size of the numbers. I'm starting to get myself dated. I was amazed how much money. How much E-rate money do we get a year, Frank? Do you know ballpark?
It's approximately, I want to say, $150 per student for a 5-year period.
Free and reduced has a lot to do with it still?
Free and reduced has a lot to do with the amount you qualify for.
Okay. The network infrastructure equipment, is it dated? Is it being improved? Is it wearing out? All the above?
That's the next item.
Yeah, this is like the pipeline to get the fiber in, right?
Correct.
Oh. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong one. Same thing on the WAN, the wide area network. Again, does that wear out? Is new schools?
Volume.
Volume? It's more efficient?
It provides a lot more bandwidth for the services we need for the schools. So think of a bicycle tire. The tire is your wide area network, where it services every facility in the district. And then your local area network breaks off of that and actually services the individual facility. So you've got one main pipe coming in that then gets distributed to all the facilities across the district for your internet services.
So help me a little bit. Are we improving it? Does it wear out?
We are increasing the bandwidth because of the additional needs of the district via technology.
All right. Okay, thank you on this one.
Mr. Fletcher, do we have fiber going into all the schools currently?
We do now.
Pardon?
We do now.
Okay, but with this, but now this has also a redundancy to it that if.
Correct. We have a redundant ring. So if one piece of fiber goes down, the second one takes over unless somebody cuts it in the street.
Okay. I had asked you earlier in the week when this came up, I had noticed that there were a couple of elementary schools, or I guess it wasn't you, I'm sorry, but I'm hoping you know the answer, that there were a couple of elementary schools that were not listed on here. And so could you kind of review that as to why they're not listed and what we've done in the past?
They're tied to additional bigger facilities. So Anderson Elementary is tied to Anderson Junior, Connolly's tied here.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's all the questions I have. Ms. Love? No. Mrs. Bruner? Mr. Olive?
No, thank you.
Okay. I know I'll just make a comment. I know it's a lot of money, but we're hoping that at least does this E-rate come back as a reimbursement to us then?
Yes.
Okay, and we have to apply for it though, is that correct?
We've already applied for it. When we get the invoices, we submit the invoices for payment.
Okay, great. Okay, so we'll go ahead. All those in favor of approving Cox Communications to provide internet and wide area network services for the total expenditure of $2,380,190, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next, Mr. Fletcher again, we have our network infrastructure equipment.
Madam President, members of the board, in order to receive E-rate monies, the district issued a request for quotation for E-rate eligible network infrastructure equipment and structured cabling. All vendors were required to be on existing state master contracts or approved cooperative purchasing contracts or compliant consortium contracts in order to qualify. The district received 7 responses to the RFQ, but only 4 vendors met the full requirements. The committee reviewed, scored each proposal. The committee recommends approval of Enterprise Network Solutions to provide the network infrastructure equipment in the amount of $1,301,770.03, and Logicalis to provide structured cabling in the amount of $800,000 $1,517.35 for a grand total of $2,102,287.37 or 38 cents. We recommend your approval.
Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. Could I please get a motion for approving these two vendors for the totals that were indicated?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions? Mr. Worth?
Okay, let me get back on the right item this time. Structured cabling, is that optic, fiber optic?
Correct.
Does fiber optic wear out?
It can get old and brittle, yes.
Is there higher quality or is it fiber optic?
I would say that I don't know that there is that much dramatic improvement in the last 5 years or so, but certainly they're always looking for a way to improve the glass, make it less likely to break or fracture, easier to splice when we need to.
So right now, I think it's for $800,000, you're going to purchase structured cabling or the optic. Is that for the new schools?
It's for the new high school.
Okay.
Primarily.
I apologize. I'm learning this stuff. I think there's probably a much better venue to discuss this, which I hope we can set up sometime so I can start to understand what's going on a little bit here. So thank you.
I had a quick question.
Yes, Mr. Olive.
The network infrastructure equipment, is there any of it that's proprietary or can anybody work on it?
We are an HP house, so there's probably something proprietary to it. But it's really just switching data. Data's coming in, it recognizes, the switch says, oh, this is going to Dr. Gilbert, and I send it that way.
Frank, I thought of something else. I'm sorry. Bob Rice talked about this years ago when we were talking about cabling versus wireless. And he was implying that, that Intel is, this is probably 10 years ago now, Intel's gone pretty much wireless. Is that true, or do you need to do the fiber optic for security purposes?
We can control the bandwidth of a wired network much more than we can control the bandwidth of a wireless network. We can guarantee you speed to and from the desktop and probably have a higher security rate with a wired network. This is, again, bringing the fiber into the site, and then we do have a wireless network at every school. We do have a structured cabling network at every school.
They're both used, I guess, assume?
They are.
Okay. All right.
Are there any other questions? Mrs. Bruner, Ms. Love? Okay. So this whole package that we're looking at for the two of these, two items, the first one is to get all of the in-ground cabling from wherever to the buildings. And then the cabling for this is for inside the buildings, and the switches and all the other items from Enterprise Network Solutions is all of the additional hardware that goes into providing internet within the specific sites. Is that correct, or generally?
Generally, yes.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure. And so that's why we're looking at several thousand different components as we go through each individual school.
The two biggest ones for the infrastructure equipment, 80% of it's for the new high school, and then we are upgrading the backbone at all the elementary schools to 10 gigabits.
Okay.
That's
great.
the two major components of that
Okay.
agenda item.
This agenda item? This item? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and vote. All those in favor of approving Enterprise Network Solutions to provide the network infrastructure equipment in the amount of $1,301,770.03, and Logicalis to provide structured cabling in the amount of $800,517.35 for a grand total of $2,102,287.38. Please say aye.
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 Opposed? All, motion carries. Next, we are going to be looking at our high school number 7, ACP, furniture and equipment. Dr. Gilbert.
Madam President, members of the board, request board approval on the below items to be purchased for high school number 7, ACP, in the amount of $113,465.33. With approval, CSD will get current year pricing on these items. This will also allow plenty of time to have all of the items available at time of the school completion so that when school starts, all items follow procurement rules and guidelines.
Thank you. Could I please get a motion for this?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve athletic, math, and science supplies to be purchased for high school number 7, ACP, in the amount of $113,465.33.
Second.
Are there any questions for Dr. Gilbert?
I did have one question.
Yes, Mrs. Brenner.
So I know we had been getting some feedback about numbers, and I was just curious where that is headed and how that affects what you're spending here.
When we look at what we're purchasing, we're trying to make sure that what do we need to have over the next couple of years when we're purchasing, when we're filling a science lab, things of that nature. If we're looking at math books, we can look at what the numbers are going to be, purchase those books, and if we need more, we can look at the textbook budget and purchase more, so we're not trying to purchase too many. Currently, we are seeing that we're at about 1,130 students already as of today, and it's continuing to grow. So we're looking and seeing those students come in. So we're, the principal is working with the purchasing department as well as their teachers as to things that they need. Because we're moving from a building to a building, some of that's going to help us because we're taking some of those, that's some of the science, some of the books, those things we're going to take and move to the new building. So it's going to be less that we're going to have to purchase. At the same time, I have the principal of ACP Oakland working with the principal of ACP Erie to determine what needs to move, what needs to be left, and we're purchasing off of that as well.
Thank you.
In addition, Mrs. Bruner, there is the School Facilities Board minimum adequacy guidelines that we have to stock the school based on the capacity of it, not the enrollment of it.
And what does that apply to specifically?
It applies to some of the chemistry equipment. It applies to library books. It applies to computers.
Microscopes,
et cetera. So when you look at this and you say there's only 1,100 kids, why do we have so much? Well, some of it has to do with the minimum adequacy guidelines.
Thank you.
I had a question. When we were looking at the Camille checkbook back 3 or 4 weeks ago, there was a line in there for like 130 or something like that for this. Is this the same thing?
Those were for the supplies.
Yep.
Some of this is in the budget, in the F&E budget that we give to a new school. Those were, I believe, the M&O supplies, toilet paper, copy paper, pens, pencils,
Okay.
and all those things.
Okay.
Ms. Love, do you have any questions? Okay. I guess I have a question. I noticed that a lot of these, like chemistry supplies and things, dealing with, beakers and pipettes and stirring rods and things like that. And I guess in some ways they, I don't know, personally, not necessarily accounting-wise or state procurement-wise or whatever, I would classify those sometimes as consumables. They get broken, they have to be replaced. Granted, you can use them over and over again, but I guess how does that relate to utilizing bond money for these type supplies versus M&O budgets? And some of them do seem to be a little more, because I see the budget source is bond.
Great questions. A couple things, and I want to refer back to Jason's question and then to yours, Barb. So there are line items where there are items in the bond that the contractor and then we set up to have the school equipped, and that comes from the bond typically when we build it, and we equip it with the main items that are needed at the facility that come out of bond. Then there's a line item that's like what you saw on Camille's check register, one for staffing, that was real specific, that's additional from ACP Erie. And then there's another line item in there that's for maintenance and operations supplies like Dr. Castile talked about. But also there'll be items that we don't even think of, they're just to facilitate just the classroom. It's the items when they get on board and that teacher needs it for the classroom, that sport needs it, the fine arts needs it, the marching band uniforms come in, all those types of items. And that's where there's $1 million line item that covers all of those things. We give schools typically an M&O and a capital budget that kind of replaces that for the first year. Plus it gives them what they need to start the school because it's just expensive. These items are to get the school up and going. Those items are what actually help the school function. So there's just two different criteria. But most of these items are all bought out of the bond. We give them some capital and M&O, and that helps them purchase all the things they need to start at the beginning of the year. Does that help?
Well, that's good. I mean, out of that, you're going to purchase like the radios for the security guys and the golf carts and stuff like that. But this actually did have some consumables in it. Like I don't know what. Like the one I saw was like the tape to wrap ankles or something. And I mean, can you buy that kind of stuff out of?
That's typically out of M&O. So do you remember what that was for the furniture and equipment? I apologize, I didn't look at that for the.
Yeah, it's in the Medco.
It's in the athletic training supplies. Typically that's going to be out of M&O. So when we code it, we will specifically code that to maintenance and operations. There are some items that you are not allowed to come out of bond and not allowed out of capital. So when we go to code it, we'll be specific. But majority of the items are for furniture and equipment are for the items to equip the school.
Just to add, ultimately, you're going to have whether it's going to be coded to M&O or it's going to be coded to capital. Okay. When we're looking at what we're trying to order from what we bring to you is going to be in order to open a school and what are the needed things, whether it's materials for science or it's materials for a weight room, whether it's textbooks, all of those things we put together as a package of what we know that we're going to need to purchase in order for that school to function based on all of our schools that we've opened. Okay. And we look at that information. And then when we purchase it, even though it may be on a cooperative, when it comes to the coding piece, that's where we get out of the way and we work with the business department to make sure it's coded in the right place. Our focus on our end is to make sure we have everything we need. On the business end of it, we make sure it's coded in the right place.
Okay, I think that's more to the point of Barb's question.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep, okay, we're good. So,
Great answer, Craig. Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and vote on this. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion carries. And then, let's see. Last, we have our employee compensation for 2021-2022. Dr. Nance.
Madam President, members of the board, we have attached for you recommendations from our Super Q committee, and we're recommending approval of employee compensation for the 2021-2022 school year as attached.
Dr. Nance, would you want to perhaps just kind of maybe go through some of the highlights of this, if at all possible?
Sure. As we're looking at the recommendations, for all employee groups, so we're looking at our support staff, our certified staff, and our administrators, we're looking at a 2.5% increase. We do make adjustments for the entry range and the top range that they would receive a 1.5 into those, and then our top range also receives a one-time stipend to equal what the 2.5 would be for the percent. For health insurance, the district will contribute an additional 2% to cover the increase in the employee cost for health insurance. So there will be no increase for the individual employee. Now, family coverage will still experience an increase. And the HSA contributions will remain the same with no decrease. We will have employees who are with us next December and have been hired at least upon September next year and through December 2021. Are eligible for a one-time stipend of $1,000 for a retention adjustment. We have an increase in student enrollment. If our enrollment grows next year by at least 500 kids, each employee would be eligible for $500. If our enrollment increased by 1,000 kids, they would be eligible for $1,000. Those are an either or, not in addition to each other. We are still utilizing the Journey 2025 stipend for meeting district strategic goals and site goals, so it's eligible for up to $600. Our wellness incentive will be considered to be reinstating. It's looking very positive. It will be revisited when we're back in session in July, and that would be $400 for eligible employees. If the override election is pursued in November 2021 and it passes, full-time staff would receive a $500 stipend.
I think the other thing is a lot of potential things. So I think we can ask people to read that, but I think that was some of the main things, because a lot of those have just if we type things. So.
Barbara, let me just ask a quick question.
Well, we can. We don't have a motion yet, so let's go ahead and get a motion on the table.
I make a motion to approve the proposed employee compensation for 2021-22 school year.
Second.
It's on the table. Mr. Worth, go ahead, ask your questions.
Journey 2025, what source of funding is that? Is that M&O?
Are there any other?
Yes, it's M&O.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Mrs. Bruner?
So I did have a question regarding the wellness incentive. Do we have any specifics? You know, with all the other items, we kind of have a specific trigger that sets something in motion, but with the wellness, we don't seem to be as specific. And I was wondering if there was any specifics related to when that might happen or not happen. What are the possible criteria for that?
Mrs. Bruner, there was not a specific trigger. What we are doing is having Kairos, our medical provider, our administrator, they're going to come in and provide some key information to the board in June. The trigger has been really, is the growth there and can the budget handle it? And that's why we wanted to bring it back to the board in September, October arena, once we knew what the growth was, what the status was of the budget, and then the board could determine whether to fund it or not. So there wasn't any specific trigger other than bringing it back to you once we knew what the budget was. Mm-hmm. But I think the study session that Mrs. Cooper has arranged will be very helpful, and hopefully we'll get into some of the advantages of a wellness program, et cetera.
And so with the medical plan, are there any changes to copays or any other costs that employees might incur?
So there, what part of the decision for health insurance was to take on the cost for employees, because that's the portion we pay is for employees. And then they do, if they have family members, however, they are going to pay for that increase on their family member side.
And that's just for the cost of the insurance itself, but I was asking about like copays or deductibles or anything like that. Is that all staying the same?
Yes, there are some, depending on which plan they have chosen on that plan. There are some plan adjustments that we took into consideration and then that we educated our benefits committee on, which Mrs. Cooper has been leading. Sandy, would you like to add anything on to that?
Mrs. Cooper, would you go to a microphone, please?
There were some adjustments to the co-pays as well. We really assumed about a 3% overall increase to our health insurance, which was still, fantastic. But we adjusted co-pays, and we also, the district picked up 2% of that. The adjustment ended up being about a little over 1%, we hope, of savings. So that's how we got to the overall kind of savings or adjustment overall increase of 3%. So yes, some of the co-pays did change for the plans. They increased a little bit, and I could get you that detail too.
Okay, I'm just concerned for those folks who already are having to pay more for their children, and then if they have to pay more for themselves as well, and we're not bumping up at least a little bit the HSA contribution, then there's going to be a bigger gap again this year. So that was what I was trying to get at. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes.
Sandy, what's medical inflation right now? Inflation?
It's about 7 to 8%.
See, that's the challenge we have. Mm-hmm. Since we don't have that kind of funding, we've got to do something to deal with that 7%. So that's part of the problem.
And Mr. Worth knows typically what we do is we tweak our plan a little bit, right? And we also, and so that can offset some of the direct costs to the employee for their cost of their insurance, especially for the dependents. So I think that, you know, the benefit committee did a fabulous job of trying to identify the ways we can tweak the plan to have the least impact on the employees out of pocket, and also encourage some good spending, good consumer spending that saves the plan and saves the employee. So that's maybe something too in our June 9th meeting. We have our trust come out. We could talk a little bit about those ideas about plan changes to also save us the district money and also the employees some money.
And then my other question was regarding the outlook right now. I know there's not a complete picture yet, but regarding the possibility of RIF and how much retirements and those who are moving on to other things, how much is that going to mitigate that? What's the picture look like? And I'm assuming that that seems to be covered since it's not mentioned here, right?
Yes, Mrs. Bruner, I'd like to give Dr. Nance and her team credit. We believe, I was going to mention it later because I'd like to share it with the employees, that we have reached that goal of
11 million.
I know, I just want to make them a little nervous here. $11 million reduction in our budget in order to meet the goals that we wanted with Super Q, and we are there. However, there are still employees that we're having to transfer to available positions, but those positions are still in the budget. So we have a little bit more work to do, but we're there. We don't, through attrition, through leaves of absences, retirements, resignations, we believe we've gotten there. And I think what the effort that has gone in HR is unlike any that I've heard of. They are dealing with every individual position and teacher. Most districts do it the quick way and just draw the line, we need to RIF, and then they bring them back as they need them. And we're trying to avoid any kind of mass reduction in force or any reduction in force. So they are doing all the work up front to say, here's an elementary teacher certified to teach secondary, let's get them moved. And they're just dealing with it one-on-one. And between the administrators at the site and the HR team, they've done just a tremendous job trying to avoid just a real plummet in our morale and fear. I wanted to tell the board before we tell the staff. So we shared it with you. We think it's very positive news, and we'll get something out to them so they can all relax. It means there will be, again, some transfers. People will have to change schools or change positions, but they have a job, they have a position.
So, yeah, I appreciate that, and, I know that's a lot of work, and in, the district that I work in, that's also the best practice they've used. We try to figure that all out ahead of time so that you're not riffing and then bringing back, then you lose some good people that way too, because they end up going somewhere else in that in-between time. And I guess because that seems to be covered, I was just thinking about other ways that, if we look at in the future, it may be more relevant. It doesn't look like it's relevant now. Some ideas regarding retirement incentives or those kind of things, as, it's cost the district a lot less to hire a person with 4 years experience than someone with 30. So it doesn't look like that's necessary now. And I appreciate, all the work that everyone's put into this process, and it's not fun when we're in that kind of situation. So I think that's all the questions I had on this. Thank you.
Mrs. Bruner, if you don't mind, there's one thing too, we looked into that. I know that was a question that you had potentially was on retirements and incentives. So we reached out because there's a lot of issues going on with ASRS. There's some specific guidelines and statutes, and they've really kind of cracked down on incentives. And if there's any increase of over 30% due to specific things, then you'll be penalized and you have to pay all the deferred compensation for years. And we're battling those cases right now. So unfortunately, there has been some attorney general opinions on it, but ARS has cracked down on that. So we'd have to really dive into those types of items and really get a lot of blessing from the attorney generals through ARS because they're cracking down on that. And then it costs us more than we save. So sometimes it's incentive to have retirees leave, but ultimately you're paying back then this deferred compensation somehow.
Yeah, it's very complicated for sure. And I've looked at some ways that it still seems to be without any penalty to the district. And there are some legal ways to go about doing it and to make it beneficial to the taxpayers and to the district. But sure, we don't need to get into all that right now, but I think there are some options we could look at in the future if we need it.
And we will definitely dive into those and get help and guidance if that's the direction. Right.
Are there any other questions? Mr. Olive? Ms. Love?
No questions, just, thank you everybody for your hard work, and thank you, Dr. Castile, for clarifying that trigger with the wellness incentive, because that was the same question that I had as well. I really would like us to work on a plan for getting that back or working towards that as much as possible. Just hearing how people are dependent on it, I think the comments tonight gave me a little bit more insight because I know I've had some questions around that. So thank you all.
So if there are no other questions, all those in favor of the employee compensation plan for next year, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries. I also want to thank everyone for all their hard work for the Super Q, and it was a long process, but I think that we came up with something that was agreeable to everyone, and it was a real, I think it was a real great teamwork effort to come to the agreement that we came to. So thank you for all those people who served on the Super Q committee and who supported all of this. Next is our roadmap, and we are already on March 24th. Our next meeting is April 14th, and we will be having a study session because the board needs to will need to be reviewing some scholarship applications for the board scholarship and determine who our recipient will be.
Madam President, you'll notice on June 9th is when we'll have our health benefits study session, so you can be prepared to ask your questions, and we'll talk about the wellness incentive at that point.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Schedule. Are we still planning the meeting for next Wednesday? I had one for 4 o'clock.
We will have to.
But after tomorrow's meeting, we'll decide?
We'll decide.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
And then, let's see, superintendent comments. Dr. Castile.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, members of the board, I want to congratulate one of our favorite partners, the Chandler Education Foundation. They had a successful Winner's Choice cash or car raffle, and I'm smiling because once again, one of our employees won the car. And it was kind of fun because she has a 19-year-old car with over 200,000 miles. She couldn't get it to pass emissions, and her name was drawn out of the basket. So it was kind of cool. One of our 6th grade teachers, and it's always fun when someone wins it that really can use it and need it. And obviously, this money will go to support our Chandler scholars and will be given out at the scholarship ceremony at the end of the year. So just thank you to the CEF, Jen Hewitt and her team, and their entire board does a tremendous job of supporting us. So thank you to everybody who sold tickets or bought tickets, and I know the board was there helping me hit my quota, so I appreciate it. I'm not going to go into all the success. You already heard about all the state championships, the individual. You heard about Hamilton High won the state academic decathlon for the 3rd straight year. And Chandler High and Castile covered it all. The only thing they didn't cover was the wrestling at Basha High. The girls wrestling team brought home the state championship there. So we've had a very successful athletic season, and the spring sports have started. The weather's been beautiful. If you want to go watch some baseball or softball or track, it's there. You can see, I just wanted to point out, and I believe it was, I think it was the Castile presentation, talked about a lot of the senior activities that they're planning for the end of the year, the barbecue, the sunset. And we know that there are a number of families who are upset about the lack of a prom. It was a decision made amongst the school leaders in conjunction with the district. And I just wanted to share that when we made the decision, it was in an effort to protect graduation and not put kids in a situation where we could end up with a problem and have to quarantine kids before the graduation ceremony. So the things that they're planning are outdoors. They'll require masks. They're really going to set it up so that it's much safer than being in a closed environment or in an environment where kids are in pretty close contacts, if you've been in a dance anytime. Mrs. Bruner probably could share stories about that. So
it may not be appropriate at a board meeting, but yeah.
So, but the schools are going to do a lot to celebrate and have fun activities for the seniors. So we'll be getting a list of those from the various high schools, and I'll be sharing them with you so you can know that we are doing our part to make sure the seniors have a great end of the year.
Thank you, Dr. Castile. Do we have any board members who want to say anything? Mrs. Bruner?
I just wanted to piggyback on Dr. Castile's comments. I wanted to thank everyone at the foundation, all the volunteers who worked so hard to not only organize the raffle and spend hours and hours, pulling names and getting the word out to those folks who won at multiple different times, but also to all the work they do for other events during the year and distributing funds to classrooms and scholarships for kids. It's just wonderful, all the hours those folks dedicate. And I also just wanted to thank the wonderful staff at Willis, Bogle, and Humphrey. I had the opportunity to spend some of my spring break on those campuses and speak with the certified and support staff there. And I just wanted to thank them and really everyone in the district for all the sacrifices they've been making this year and all the extreme amount of effort and work that has gone into this year, and it is noticed by all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Brenner. Mr. Olive?
Nothing important that anybody else hasn't already gotten. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Love? Mr. Ward? Okay. I want to publicly acknowledge how much we value our Asian and Pacific Islander community in the Chandler Unified School District. We are disheartened by the increase in anti-Asian hate crimes, especially over the last year. Dr. Salou recently sent a communique to administrators and school leaders to encourage them to be hyper-aware of the needs of our students, families, and colleagues. Dr. Catherine Nagagawa, an ASU professor, was the featured speaker last month in our lecture and film series. The purpose of our equity lecture and film series is to build knowledge and understanding of people whose backgrounds, cultures, and lived experiences are different than ours. Dr. Nakagawa's informative lecture expanded our knowledge of the Asian community, specifically about the model minority myth that impacts many of our students. Her lecture is available on our equity website. I encourage you to increase your knowledge of the Asian American and Pacific Islander history and culture by listening to Dr. Nakagawa's informative lecture. Acts of hate or violence have no place in our society. CUSD will continue to work towards the goal of ensuring that our schools are places where all students and families feel safe, accepted, and affirmed. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and our meeting is adjourned.